Here we go. We are live inside Oracle Arena in Oakland, California, as your Toronto Raptors get ready for Game 3 of the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. The series is tied at 1 apiece. Raptors need to win tonight in order to get back the home court advantage. Greg Ross joins us live now from inside Oracle Arena as they set up and focus up on you there, Greg. Before we get to the game, I have to ask you this. I hear Metallica is doing the U.S. anthem tonight. Is that true?
Absolutely. In fact, James Hetfield and Kurt Hammond are on the court right now actually rehearsing. I just saw James Hetfield there, just passed his guitar off. So we got a sneak peek here. We got to listen. You guys just missed it at home, unfortunately. But it is a star-studded affair, very similar to what we've seen inside Scotiabank Arena for Games 1 and 2. No Drake, but of course we do have members of Metallica, which is pretty exciting. Shaq's on the court right now, having some fun doing the rounds. So yeah, lots of excitement in the building, but when you want to look at comparisons outside the building, nowhere near the kind of excitement that we've gotten used to now in these playoffs from Toronto fans. Nobody lining up around the block to stand outside and watch the game at a viewing party outside the building. In fact, it was a ghost town outside Oracle Arena all day today. We've been doing our best to find some Canadian fans, but they're going to show up at game time because they all have tickets to come inside. I did talk to some fans from the Golden State Warriors. They tell me that there is going to be a viewing party outside Oracle Arena, but nowhere near the size of what we've seen in Jurassic Park. So some fans are going to gather to watch this game. They say that their big viewing parties happen when the team's on the road. People come inside the arena here and they watch on the screen here in the building, but nothing when they're at home. So again, we win that one for sure. Now, whether or not the Raptors can win Game 3 of this series tonight, that's something else altogether, and it's an important one for the Raptors. Let's face it, this could be an opportunity for them to take home court advantage back in this series, and they're looking at a team that is dealing with a number of injuries to some of their key players. Kevin Durant hasn't played since the second round of the playoffs, and he will not be in the lineup tonight for the Golden State Warriors. He's their star. He's the reigning two-time Finals MVP. He's not going to be here again tonight. We also saw Klay Thompson go down in Game 2 of this series. He left early. He was seen in the tunnel wearing an ice pack on his thigh, and he is questionable for this game tonight. Still no word on whether or not he's going to be in the lineup. So that's the good news for the Raptors. They're dealing with their own bumps and bruises. Obviously, this has been a tough playoff run for them, but they say that they'll be ready to go. No changes to the Raptors lineup as we get set for Game 3 tonight, Dwight.
We are excited. Thank you for that, Greg. Of course, people across Canada are hoping Kawhi Leonard can lead the Raptors to a win tonight, but he's got fans in California too, especially where he grew up near Los Angeles. Kim Brune-Huber met some of them at his former high school.
The first day of basketball summer camp at Martin Luther King High School in Riverside, about 90 kilometers east of Los Angeles. Of course there's talent here, but the next Kawhi Leonard,
oh my God!
Well, that's a long shot.
Yes. Ready? Go.
Jeff Dietz knows coaching an athlete like that only happens once in a lifetime.
I just feel real lucky to be just part of it.
When Leonard first arrived here, Dietz couldn't have guessed his new student would one day become one of the top 5 players in the NBA. But he knew Leonard would be a special player because his position on the court was all of them.
When you put a kid on a high school basketball court that can score from all 5 positions, who can defend all 5 positions, that as a coach, you kind of just need to get out of the way.
Pass out, pass out, pass out, yeah.
Kenneth Clayton's brother played on this court with Leonard and told him all about his teammates' legendary work ethic, a lesson that transcends basketball.
For me, that's saying that from anywhere and any place, anyone can get better.
Now, with Leonard leading the Raptors to the NBA Finals, everyone here is cheering for a team based in another country against a team from their own state.
We want him to know that the second biggest fan base of the Toronto Raptors are in Riverside.
But for how much longer? Riverside sports columnist Jim Alexander has followed Leonard since high school. With Leonard set to become a free agent this summer, Southern Californians are hoping he will eventually join this pantheon of basketball heroes here at the Staples Center by signing with the Lakers or the Clippers.
Do you think he'll end up playing in the stadium behind you?
Coming back home to Southern California, that's a powerful lure. But you get back home and then all of a sudden you have all your friends bugging you for tickets and whatnot. So I don't know. But if I were to guess, my hunch is that he will stay in Toronto.
And believe it or not, Maurice Jones would be fine with that. Of course, he'd love to see his idol play in LA, but he thinks Leonard should stay in Toronto.
Might as well just stay there.
That's very unselfish of you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always nice to come home, but like if you're winning titles at a place and building a new legacy over there, might as well just stay over there where people love you.
Camp is done for the day. Tomorrow night, these kids will be watching and cheering. And Dietz says he hopes somewhere down deep inside, Leonard will feel it.
Kawhi on 3.
Kawhi Leonard.
Ready? Kawhi on 3. 1, 2, 3. Kawhi!
Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Riverside, California.
Yeah, we love him too. From LA to TO. Now, no doubt, Leonard has legions of fans. You're looking live outside Scotiabank Arena. Raptors fans lining up to get inside Jurassic Park. We'll take you back there to hear how fans are feeling before the big game tonight at 6:30. I'll tell you what they're feeling right now, though, Colin. It's rain, go away, at least for a couple of days. Don't come back tonight. No.
Yeah, don't come back. That's right. It is damp out there, okay? It's damp, but at least it's better than it was just a few hours ago. So things are drying out, and there'll be a few sprinkles kind of here and there, and that feeling in the air, but not too bad, really not too bad. So I've got just the risk of some isolated showers there through 7. The temperature, though, that's the problem really now, is that the temperatures are so cool out there. Cloudy conditions 13, and even by 11, that temperature just going down another degree, about 12 degrees. So we do have that in terms of what you have to deal with, but then we have some wonderful weather that is on the way to us. So I want to show you that. Very encouraged by what I'm seeing in the long-range forecast. For now, though, 14 degrees at the moment. You can see what I mean by the heavier rains that have passed off, moving off to the east. Then we've had some breaks, a few more light showers to come. That's why I kind of had that in the early part of when you'll be down there at Jurassic Park. And then it'll mostly be not only the cloud cover, but maybe some low-level stratus, which would be some fog. So a little bit of fog development, that's certainly possible through the overnight hours, and we may have a few spots where visibility is reduced a little bit into tomorrow morning. To start off, a little bit of cloud cover, but then that ridge of high pressure builds in. We'll see sunshine coming at us, and we're going to see that temperature getting to where it should be at this time of year, seasonal for the high. So after the low tonight of 11, 22 degrees. And Dwight, I have a trend where we're going to see the temperature climbing a little bit over the next few days. I'm going to share that with you coming up.
Like Kawhi climbing and dunking in Oakland tonight. Thank you, Colette.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, Kawhi. I love that cheer.
Very cute. Thanks. Sure, our Raptors are successful, but could they be the most valuable sports franchise in all of Canada? How they stack up against the Jays and the Leafs coming up a little later in the show. Mayor Tory looking for Premier Ford to respect the process as the relationship between City Hall and Queen's Park continues to deteriorate. The mayor is upset about being notified by text message that the province wants to change Toronto's development plans. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly joins us from Yonge and Summerhill tonight. Lauren, this is all about a plan to put taller apartment buildings in parts of our city.
That's right, and first word came by text, and then late this afternoon, this letter arrived from Housing Minister Steve Clark to Mayor John Tory, and it talks about the province wanting to change the city's plans to make it easier to build more housing around transit hubs. Obviously, there's debate over whether or not that is going to be a good idea, but we've learned one piece of it would lead to taller buildings potentially by removing a cap in certain areas of Midtown, and that has some residents on edge. As construction continues on the Eglinton Crosstown, the province is changing Toronto's official plans to allow more growth near major transit hubs like this.
This neighborhood has changed a lot.
The news has this longtime Midtown resident bracing for taller and taller towers.
We have no objection necessarily to tall buildings. We supported a 65-story application at Yonge and Eglinton, but it has to be within the context of the area.
He also worries growing too big, too fast could leave communities without supports.
If you have a very dense community, you need good schools, you need some parks, you need to have some libraries, you definitely need some daycares, and you need some open spaces where people can just walk the dogs or whatever. Those are some of the bare minimums that people need, and we're not getting those.
Toronto spent years on development strategies for both Midtown and downtown, capping tower heights and building in services and supports.
The Ford government is just giving away the shop to the development industry and allowing them to build as much as they want, as big as they want, all crunched into certain areas.
This Midtown councillor says that type of growth won't help the city's housing crisis either.
This is the same government that earlier this year withdrew all rent controls on any new units being built in Ontario.
But the province maintains their plan will bring affordable housing and necessary supports.
We maintain the position of growth paying for growth.
Amid all the debate, what's alarming for Toronto's mayor is that he learned of the changes last night through a text message from the housing minister.
There has been a process followed here that is disrespectful of the City of Toronto, that is non-consultative.
Now, this is just the latest instance where the province has made a sweeping change that impacts Toronto, but city officials say they weren't properly consulted. We first saw that when they slashed the size of city council last summer. We saw it again when there were major cuts to public health. And it seems, yet again, the city has been caught off guard. Dwight?
Yeah, looking for some respect from the province. Thank you for that, Lauren. A big announcement out of Queen's Park tonight. The Ford government introducing legislation to cap wage increases for public sector employees. Lorenda Redekop joins us live from Queen's Park with more on this. And Lorenda, this is going to affect a lot of people.
That's for sure, Dwight. We are talking about 1 million people in this province who are public sector workers. Included among those would be teachers and other education staff, also nurses, people who work in colleges, and then people who work in hospitals, long-term care homes, also Orange Air ambulance staff and people at children's aid societies, and also the OPP. Not included would be other police forces, firefighters and other municipal workers, and also not included are doctors. Now, what it means is that the maximum wage increase would be 1% a year over 3 years. It would cover the next collective agreement for any group. For instance, the OPP, they just recently signed a new contract, so that would not be included among this, but their next one could be if this is in place. The government says that without this, there could have been thousands of job losses.
This is a fair and time-limited approach that applies across the provincial public sector. And I want to be very clear, introduction of this legislation does not impose a wage freeze, rollback, or job cuts.
Now, the government says that a 1% wage increase would still add up to $720 million. They say they're doing this in light of a tough financial situation.
What are we hearing from the unions about this, Lorenda?
Well, as you can expect, they definitely are not happy with this. They say the Ontario Federation of Labour said that this is once again the Ford government attacking workers' rights, and says that it will be more difficult for workers to make ends meet in this province. We also spoke with Smokey Thomas, who's the head of OPSU. He said that this is going to be what he described as a long, hot summer for the government. His union is planning to protest.
It's just unprecedented for a minister to be able to decide if a union is going to be captured in the 1% cap or not captured. Like when you look through it all, just at first glance, it's really, frankly, it's illegal. And again, I'd just say to the Premier Ford, like how many fronts do you want to be fighting on with community groups and parents and multinational beer firms?
So expect the unions to be fighting this. Interestingly, tomorrow is expected to be the last day of the legislative session here at Queen's Park. The government says it is not rushing this through. Behind this all, though, is the next big contract that is up. It's the teachers' contracts, and theirs expires on August 31st. So it will be interesting to see the impact that it has on those negotiations. We don't expect at this point for the government to call the legislature back during the summer, but as I said, it will be interesting to see what impact this does have on teachers' contracts and all the other contracts coming up.
Yeah, and they're already battling with school boards as it is. Thank you for that, Lorenda.
You're welcome.
Is Toronto's Chinatown neighborhood at risk of losing its identity? Some community members feel that could happen. As Kelda Ewan explains, they're worried gentrification is driving out longtime businesses and residents.
On the corner of Spadina and St. Andrew, this trendy building has replaced what used to be the Chinese restaurant Bright Pearl.
It was this iconic building in Chinatown. It was yellow tiled and it had a green roof.
But the loss of aesthetic is not what Amy Lamb is most concerned about. The new space has sat empty since October. And just a few steps down, what used to be a popular Chinese grocery store is now this.
I think what we see across Chinatowns all over North America is displacement of affordable space, which are historically places where communities of color gather.
The Chinatown BIA says rent has gone up about 40% in the last 3 years. This past weekend, a group of artists and activists took part in a procession down Spadina to draw attention to the issue. The walk ended here at Chinatown Center, where the group began planting a garden.
To create more bonds with the other people in the community and also fight gentrification in the small actions of taking care of a space.
Florence Yee helps to run T-Base, a community arts space inside the center. For her, the gentrification of Chinatown also means the loss of community.
This is basically one of the only places I can casually practice my language, Cantonese, and one of those places that is really relevant to a lot of different parts of my culture.
Arlene Chan is the author of numerous books on the Chinese community in Canada. But while she says gentrification is happening, she is also optimistic.
A lot of a new generation of business owners who are from Taiwan, from China, from Hong Kong. So they're opening up the bubble tea stores, dessert places.
We have.
Meanwhile, those at T-Base hope young Chinese Canadians will be able to use the space to reclaim their identities in an ever-changing Chinatown.
A spot to learn more about history and to learn about the surrounding area and its people and our commitment to this kind of space.
A petition has been launched by the coalition of activists across North America. It is demanding cities come up with policies to stop the displacement of affordable spaces in Chinatowns. It has almost 50,000 signatures so far. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Hundreds of Muslims praying in a mosque in Brampton, coming together to celebrate Eid. This marks the end of Ramadan, a month where Muslims fast from dawn until sunset. Fasting during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which also include prayer and charity.
We celebrate happiness today and we share it. Today I am having my friend Amjad with me, and it's like the double happiness for us.
It's kind of like Thanksgiving and Christmas where you guys go to each other's houses. This is like this our holiday.
Like seeing your family, spending time together.
There's something else people at this Brampton Mosque are thinking about. They say they are all putting in a special prayer for the Raptors to win Game 3.
Many of them would never return, and the heroism, courage, and sacrifice of those who lost their lives will never be forgotten.
75 years after the beginning of the end of the Second World War, D-Day ceremonies took place across Britain today. We will take you there after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
75 years ago today, a massive troop deployment began from the shores of England. More than 150,000 Allied troops departed for France. It was the start of the D-Day invasion. And today in Portsmouth, the Queen joined world leaders at a special ceremony. Renee Filipponi was there.
There was a celebratory atmosphere here where the public were able to watch the commemoration in Portsmouth on the south coast of Britain. World leaders and the Queen were just on the other side of this fence. The crowds clapped and gave standing ovations along with the odd tear. The program seems to have hit just the right note. The event marked the anniversary of the largest seaborne invasion in history that helped end the Second World War. Through songs and videos and speeches, it took the audience through the story of that war and how 15 nations united under one banner to fight together, leaving these shores 75 years ago. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told the story of Lieutenant Colonel Cecil Merritt, who was part of the landing in Dieppe in 1942.
Although twice wounded, Lieutenant Colonel Merritt continued to direct the unit's operations with great vigor and determination. He then coolly gave orders for the departure and announced his intention to hold off and get even with the enemy. When last seen, he was collecting Bren and Tommy guns and preparing a defensive position which successfully covered the withdrawal from the beach. Lieutenant Colonel Merritt is now reported to be a prisoner of war.
The Queen was a clear favorite with the crowds. She sat alongside President Trump, but the highlight for many here was the speech by a 99-year-old vet.
I was 12 years old when I landed on Gold Beach. Sorry, 23 years old. I put my age back a bit. I was terrified. I think everyone was. You don't show it, but it's there. I look back on it as a big part of my life. It changed me in a way. But I was just a small part in a very big machine.
A cruise ship will now take hundreds of vets to Normandy this evening, the same journey they took back in 1944. This will likely be the last event of this scale. As the years pass, so do the Second World War vets, now well into their 90s. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Portsmouth, UK.
Tomorrow is the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. U.S., British, and Canadian troops stormed the beaches of France, a key turning point in the Second World War. But it came at a heavy cost. Thousands of soldiers were killed, and today in Normandy, a moving ceremony to honor those lost.
I'm so surprised to see so many people at this. It's so gratifying to be here.
Dozens of Canadian veterans took part. Canada's Defence Minister and the Veterans Affairs Minister were also at the event. So was Governor General Julie Payette. And tomorrow, right here on CBC television, the Nationals' Adrian Arsenault will bring us the D-Day commemoration from Juno Beach, starting early at 5 a.m. You can also stream it online or watch it on the CBC Gem app.
Sneezing, sniffling, and coughing away? Do you think your seasonal allergies are getting worse? Well, you may be right. I'm Magda Gebrselassie, and I'll tell you why after the break.
If you're an allergy sufferer like me, you've noticed you're sneezing and coughing and itching a little more this spring. Well, you're not alone. There's more pollen in the air right now, and for that, you can blame last year's weather. Magda Selassie explains.
Achoo! You know the symptoms, you've heard the complaints.
Evening is when I feel it, start to sneeze a bit more. Itchy nose.
Coughing more.
Nose starts to run.
My voice is hoarse.
I've been rubbing my eyes a bit more.
My eyes are swollen.
Itchy eyes, runny nose, the standard complaints.
You don't have to tell Sarah Goulart that there's more pollen in the air this year.
I would say it's worse, just because it's affecting my work this year for sure. So I'll start coughing with clients and I'll have to leave the room, and it's just frustrating sometimes.
Aerobiology Research Laboratories confirms there's more tree pollen than normal. The group collects samples from across the country. Dawn Jerkins is the director.
For example, in Toronto this year, the birch pollen that we've seen so far this season has been significantly higher than it has been over the last 10 years.
What's causing this? She says many factors, including last year's warm weather.
We had a really good growing season last year, really nice weather, and so the trees were able to produce a lot of pollen, and so that's why we see the trees producing more, releasing more pollen this year.
She says tree season wraps up in the next few weeks, but you still have grass and ragweed to deal with. In the meantime, Jerkins and her team have an app to help you plan your day. It's called Allergy Sufferers. You put in what you're allergic to and get daily forecasts for the area. Of course, medication is always an option, says Dr. Karen Binkley, an allergist. But she has other advice as well.
They can wear wraparound glasses with a really tight seal when they're outdoors, and that'll keep the pollen out of their eyes. They can rinse their nose out with a saltwater rinse when they come in to get rid of the pollen, rinse their hair or toss their clothes in the laundry if they've been outside for a long time.
What's not an option for Goulart is avoiding the outdoors altogether.
I work, I do everything, and you know what? It is what it is.
Magda Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette, I'm just downloading that allergy app because I am dying this year. I knew something funny was going on out there.
Yeah, it is a really tough year, and the weather isn't going to necessarily be helping us even as the pattern sort of changes. And let me just kind of explain that to you. And one thing Magda was pointing out is that what happened last year during the growing season then has an impact on this season. But in general, when we talk about things, it's going to be worse in terms of how the pollen is spread if you've got warm, dry, and especially windy conditions, as you would expect, blowing it around. However, what can happen is it really depends on what you're allergic to and what we're talking about here. Because in some cases, a wet growing season, that's great for mold, that's good for grass, it's also good for some of the weeds out there. So that actually enhances growth and production, and we've been seeing that this spring. It's been very wet. And then also when you just have some showers, it doesn't have to be dry conditions, because showers can actually break that pollen up, and then you'll have, say, one piece that suddenly becomes many particulates in the atmosphere. If you think of like a dandelion when it's in its seedling and it's all intact, and then you blow it and they go everywhere. So actually some wet conditions can make things worse. But we are moving towards a period where we're going to be seeing some drier weather, some warmer weather, and that just still means it can be a problem, because like I started that off with, generally those aren't good conditions for seeing how that pollen is out there. So here we are. We're dealing with what we've had this spring, right? And look at today, 14 degrees. This is the current temperature right now, whereas Windsor's at 22. We just couldn't get those winds to shift. We had the cloud cover, couldn't see the sunshine. Now that helped in terms of we didn't see as many thunderstorms developing because we didn't have the sun or that energy from the sun, but still some significant rain. That's mostly off to the east. We do have some damp conditions, a little bit of light shower activity, and you can see one little cell there just to the northwest of the city too. So not out of the question that we'll have some isolated thunderstorms and some heavier downpours, but we're seeing less and less of it, and we are drying out a little bit piece by piece as we go into these later evening hours. Through the overnight, some patchy fog will linger. Tomorrow morning, a few clouds to start things off, and then those clouds will be eroding as high pressure will be building in. That will set us up for for sunshine, and we're going to see a few days of sunny conditions and also milder conditions. Overnight tonight, a look at your lows. Again, a few areas could have some visibility issues if you're going to be on the roads for some reason in the overnight hours, depending on your work hours and things like that. Tomorrow afternoon, though, just really looking great. Temperatures in those low 20s. We're back to seasonal, where we ought to be at this time of year. And then the climb begins as we go towards Friday, 23 with sunshine, 24 on Saturday, a little bit breezier that day into Sunday. That's when late Sunday, it looks like the next system will be arriving that could bring us some rain showers. For now, it does seem to be holding off towards the end of the weekend and into Monday, Dwight.
Speaking for our viewers here, Colette, it's about time. Thank you.
Yes, hear, hear. You got it.
Ottawa is stepping in to save a tree planting program on the Ford government's chopping block.
I'm really hopeful that Premier Ford will step up, that he will support this program because it's good for the environment and it's good for the economy, and that's what Ontarians want.
The federal environment minister announcing $15 million over 4 years to support a program aiming to plant 50 million trees in Ontario. It was well on its way to that goal, having planted nearly 30 million trees, but the funding was cut in the provincial budget. Asked about Ottawa actually moving in to save the program, the provincial minister of Forestry Resources said the private sector has already offered to continue the work.
And I would say to the taxpayers of Ontario, if private enterprise is ready to fill a gap, is that not preferable to the government putting taxpayers' money into planting trees on private property when private industry is willing to do them?
With the money promised today by the federal government, another 10 million trees can be planted, bringing the total to nearly 40 million trees.
Meet Mike, the Brampton bus driver who goes above and beyond for his passengers. He taught himself how to speak Punjabi, and it has been making people's day ever since.
He always gives a smile to me.
Yeah. I'm Ali Chiasso, and I've got that feel-good kind of story out of Brampton coming up.
Although the game isn't taking place here at home, it hasn't stopped crowds from gathering at Jurassic Park to watch. That's where we find our Natalie Nanowski tonight. And Natalie, the game is more than 2 hours away, but look, the fans are already behind you, all lined up and pumped up.
That's just it. And even though, Dwight, it is gray outside, in here, you can hear it. It is electric. We have hundreds and hundreds of fans here lined up. Even though the game is not here, it is in San Fran. Let me show you some of the fans that we have here. This is Dominic. I asked him earlier why he's wearing a superhero suit. He had a really great answer. Tell him, Dominic.
So Raptors are like a superheroes of Canada, presenting the best way. So I'm showing my appreciation, my support for the Raptors like this way.
And that's just it, Dwight. They're not just Toronto's team, they're Canada's team. I have another family that came all the way from Chatham, Ontario. Sel, Jessica, Ethan, what time did you get up today? How was the drive?
We came at 10, we left at 10, we got here, it took about 4 hours to get here, and we've been outside since 3:30, so we're excited to be here.
All right, and it's a special day, right, that you're coming here because it is your birthday, and this is the first time you're going to be watching it here. Tell me about how excited you are.
I'm super excited. I'm hoping for a crazy atmosphere, and hopefully the Raptors can pull off a must-win, too.
Yeah, because you're a big basketball fan, right?
Very
big. Play basketball, too?
Yeah, in London at Fanshawe College, so.
So it's amazing. There you go, Dwight. You heard it. Everyone's here. They're out to support the Raptors. And as you mentioned, the game is about 2.5 hours away. And everyone here is hoping that they win. Back to you.
Thanks, Natalie. It seems everybody in Toronto and around the country is talking about the Raptors. And now the small team that used to play for small crowds at Skydome is now believed to be the most valuable sports franchise in Canada. The latest numbers from Forbes show the Raptors' estimated franchise value at $1.7 billion, more than the Blue Jays at $1.5 billion and the Leafs at just under $1.5 billion. For the Raptors, that's a gain of 222% in just 5 years. Senior business reporter Peter Armstrong joins us now. We have to talk about this, people. I think most people, if you polled our city, would think that the Leafs are the most valuable team in this town.
You know, all of this is just code for how we actually feel about these teams and which ones tap more into the zeitgeist. And I think we can all say the tide has changed. If not, it's definitely changing. You know, there's a bunch of things going on here, though. How the NBA structures their revenues is slightly different than the NHL. 50% of an NBA team's revenues come from local stuff, whether that's ticket sales, merchandise, stadium deals, all that stuff. But the other main thing that's gone on is you go back 2014, say. Tim Leiweke, who was president of MLSE at the time, said that within 10 years from then, the Raptors would be the most popular franchise in the city. People laughed him out of the room. Back then, the franchise, the Raptors, were worth about $500 million. The Leafs, which were dominant, $1.3 billion. You skip ahead to now, the Leafs are now worth $1.5 billion, solid growth. The Raptors have shot up to $1.7 billion from the Forbes count. That's going to have gone up as a result of this run, simply because of the way those revenues are structured.
People make fun of us in this town for supporting that Leaf team through all these decades of futility. The success then on the court for the Raptors, is that helping them gain this momentum financially?
Mightily, and in two ways. One, again, you go back to that notion that the way they share their revenues through the entire league is different in the NBA. So a deep run really does matter for their ticket sales, for the merchandise, for all of that stuff. The other big thing that we can't sort of lose sight of is the fact that if they win, if they even do really well through the course of the rest of this series, and Kawhi Leonard deems to stay here, and then imagine he pulls somebody else new into the franchise, he brings in a Kyrie or a somebody else, the value of the franchise grows even more.
That's the dream right there. All right, let's talk about the Drake effect. I'm not going to massage your shoulder like he's doing to our coach here. He is our global ambassador. He's one of the biggest stars on the planet. Is that affecting this too?
Well, you have to think that it does. You go back to 2014, when the team was struggling, when he came on as global ambassador, when the team wasn't doing well. They've done 5 playoff runs. He's made this a destination.
Yes.
I mean, would a guy like Kawhi have been able to convince him to come here and play were it not for Drake and for the environment that he helped to create? I think he has definitely added clear and demonstrable value to the franchise.
Yeah, and we see every carnival weekend in this town, all these NBA players are walking around because they're here hanging out with Drake. The latest valuation was made before this run in the finals. How big is this for the franchise financially, this run right here?
Massive. Again, ticket sales, merchandise, all that stuff, they get to keep so much more of it than, say, an NHL team would. And again, it's about tapping in. I mean, 10 million people, more than 10 million people watched Game 2 at some point or another. Compare that to Game 7 of the Leafs-Bruins series. I think they drew 2 million viewers.
Something like that, yeah.
So, I mean, this has done very good things for the bottom line of the franchise and for its ability to grow its fan base. It was already growing at pretty exponential rates.
Ready. Love talking sports financials with you, Peter.
There you go. I just come with the numbers.
Thank you, sir. Now let's head back to Greg Ross, who joins us from outside Oracle Arena in Oakland. And Greg, you are drawing a little bit of a comparison between the Raptors and the last Toronto team that won a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. The Toronto Blue Jays back in the early 90s. In fact, this building right across from Oracle Arena is where the Oakland A's play. Now, some of the comparisons that I'm talking about is the fact, well, that the Blue Jays were a team that had made the playoffs so many times leading up to their 2 World Series championships, but they never seemed to be able to get over the hump. And then there was a big trade, a trade that saw Tony Fernandez and Fred McGriff leave town, and in came Roberto Alomar and Joe Carter, 2 World Series heroes for the Blue Jays. And let's not forget that the Blue Jays had some magic on that run, and it happened right here in this stadium. There was one moment that some people say changed everything for the team.
It was a turning point, the moment the Toronto Blue Jays went from being just a contender to a team that could and would go all the way.
There were some good battles, and you know, both teams were competitive in their divisions.
Sandy Alderson was the general manager of the Oakland A's, the team the Blue Jays faced in the 1992 American League Championship Series. In Game 4, the A's had a 6-4 lead in the top of the 8th when this happened. A's closer Dennis Eckersley struck out Ed Sprague and then pumps his fist in the air as he glares into the Blue Jays dugout.
From the Toronto perspective, people were saying that Eckersley was kind of taunting the bench.
And my guess is it really wasn't taunting the bench. It was more just his histrionics on the mound.
Whether he meant it or not, Eckersley fired up the Blue Jays, and when they came to bat in the next inning, all-star second baseman Roberto Alomar would exact some revenge.
This is where Alomar was standing, a switch hitter, batting from the left side.
And here's Alomar, who has 3 hits
It was the top of the ninth, the Jays trailing 6-4 when Alomar stepped up and connected on an Eckersley pitch, sending it deep to right.
And a drive hit to right field. Sierra going back, looking up, and this game is tied. Roberto Alomar.
Alomar throws his arms up.
Alomar knew immediately.
This in response to Eckersley's fist pump an inning earlier.
I don't even remember that. So it obviously didn't, have a negative impact on me.
But it would have a huge impact on the series. The Blue Jays would go on to win in 6 games and then go on to win the World Series.
For us, it was a disappointment.
Could we see a moment like that back in Oakland here, but with the Toronto Raptors this time? These guys think so. We have found Raptor fans from not just Canada, from all over the place. This guy right here is from California, and you're cheering for the Raptors.
Hell yeah, I'm cheering for the Raptors.
Have you been a Raptors fan here for the last 25 years?
Oh, Tracy McGrady era with Vince Carter. Oh my God, how can you not?
So we got some people from Alberta over here. Does Alberta love the Raptors?
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
You guys came all the way down just for this.
You bet.
Absolutely.
And we've got some BC guys, Surrey, BC over here.
Surrey. It's Canada's team. You got to go for him, right?
Yeah, well, listen, I want to show you. You want to see real Canadian right here. This guy, let's see those teeth. This guy just got hit in the face with a puck. That's Canadian for you. And he's still down here. He's got a mouthpiece on there. He's trying to get those teeth fixed, but he didn't want to miss the Raptors. We got even some Torontonians, if you can believe it. People from Toronto here.
Yeah, that's right. Came down this morning. Let's go Raptors.
All right, so you guys are excited for a big win tonight. It's Game 3, Dwight, and we've got lots of Raptor fans here excited to see if the Raptors can take the lead in this series.
I'm still going to the Raptors game. I am Canadian. I love that. Thank you, Greg.
Let's go Raptors!
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Mike Landry has been a Brampton bus driver for 19 years. He's known for going above and beyond for his passengers, some of whom don't speak English, so he took it upon himself to find a way to better interact with them. Let's jump on the 56 Brampton bus with our Alice Chierson.
At first, they can't believe their ears.
What was your first interaction with him?
Yeah, he was like, he said me Sat Shri Akal. I was like, okay, Sat Shri Akal, yeah.
And when you heard him say that greeting, what did you think?
I was like, I thought like, yeah, it was something different for me. I mean, I felt really great. I mean, it was good. I was excited, like, yeah.
When did you get the idea to start learning Punjabi?
When did I get the idea? Yeah, about 4 years ago. Yeah, I had that trip with those young gentlemen on the bus, and you know, it was a night shift that they were getting off. Yeah, they were just tickled pink to teach me Punjabi, you know, because like I said, I was picking up fairly quick, so they just kept throwing stuff at me, and seeing how well I did. It went well for that 4 months. I thought, hey, you know, let's see if I can run with it. You know, after that, you get a book from the library. That helped a lot, so I knew the language structure, how to conjugate verbs and stuff like that. Just sort of took off from there. Dhanvad, mehrabani. Okay, Fermilengi.
On the first day, he surprised me that he's speaking in Punjabi. Second time seen him, and it's really good. This is really helpful for those guys.
The older folks as well.
Yeah. So they came in Canada, but they don't know how to speak the English.
I think it's a good thing, and it will help people, like, you know, to travel. Like they will be more comfortable.
We are very surprised that our culture is spread everywhere. So it's very, good for us that it's spread everywhere.
And now it's even on your bus route.
Yeah.
The riders, they really appreciate this.
Yeah, it's surprising to me as well sometimes, you know, how much they do appreciate it. You know, you start to make friends. You know, you start to know these people. And not only that, without the help of passengers, there's no way I could have learned the language, right?
You're impressed with his counting?
Yeah, I'm very impressed.
Can you count to 10 for me?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Wow, I'm so impressed.
Yeah, that's just 10. You want to hear it to 100, or how far do you want me to go?
What do you hope people get from seeing this story today?
Wow, it brings us together more than it divides us, and it may be as simple as that. Break some cultural barriers. If they get that out of it, maybe there's some good out of it.
Okay, after the break, we head to a small Ontario town with a big claim to fame when it comes to basketball. Stay with us. You're looking at Jurassic Park. The stage is set for Game 3. Fans getting ready to cheer on the Raps in Golden State with a few ponchos to keep them dry in this rain. While this is the first time the Raptors are in the NBA Finals, the game of basketball is no stranger to Canada. It was invented by Canadian James Naismith. We visited his hometown today.
With the Raptors making it into the NBA Finals, it's hugely exciting for us. James Naismith wasn't looking to make riches or anything like that from the game. He was looking to keep young men active, so it's kind of a nice story in that sense. We're very proud of the story, and we're always telling the story, but it feels like now we can share it with the whole country and even the world.
Should be proud. The mayor isn't the only one hyped about Naismith and Almont, Ontario. Even people visiting can feel the buzz in the town about the Raptors.
To see that gentleman who invented basketball we read the story, he used a hamper, a wooden hamper that he used to pick tomatoes in, put it on a post and invented the game. And, so we knew his history, but we didn't know he lived here or came from here. And this is a special moment. These little towns have little hidden gems and touchstone moments. And we do a lot of bike touring, and we've never been through this area before, so we're quite impressed. We're not too far from Toronto, so we see the throngs of people in the Jurassic Park, and now we see there's pop-up We the North Jurassic Parks taking place all in little towns all over the place.
Oh,
We the North.
Of course,
We the North.
Yes, We the North, he's right. There are many pop-up Jurassic Parks around and across Ontario, from Thunder Bay to Halifax, even across the country, including one in the inventor's hometown of Almont. This has been the home of the NBA champions for 2 years now, Oracle Arena, home court for the Golden State Warriors. Toronto fans hoping for something different this year.
Really excited tonight. We're super stoked.
Can't wait. First NBA game for both of us, so it's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome. We're looking forward to it. We came early, see everyone out here, and now we're just waiting for the game time, and we're repping the boys and supporting Canada as best we can.
This is Metro Morning, and I'm Matt Galloway. Commuter chaos and gridlock traffic. If you're in a car right now, you might be in the midst of it. So why are Toronto roads at a standstill?
Flexible work hours are one way to get around the traffic and transit problems in the city, but is there an actual solution to get Toronto moving?
From Matt in the morning to Dwight in the evening, CBC is Toronto.
4,300 kilometers away from Toronto, Oracle Arena is in Oakland, California. We are ready for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. It goes in just a few hours, and Colette Kennedy is here with me, and she, ladies and gentlemen, is Raptors ready.
I am ready. Game face, game wear, ready to go. We got to do this.
Okay, we got to talk about some weather before we run off to watch the game.
Yes, alrighty. We are looking at some patchy fog. That is after we get through. There's still some light rain showers kind of coming through, and one little pocket where we've got a heavier downpour. So it is still damp out there, but patchy fog, 11 degrees through the overnight hours, and then tomorrow we will clear out. We will see the sun coming, and 22 degrees for our high tomorrow afternoon.
If the Raptors win, we got to do the whole show in Raptors gear if they win the championship.
Okay, you too.
We'll ask the bosses.
Feel underdressed.
Go Raps, go. Have a great night, everybody.